there is so much history here. And up until medieval times, Lincoln was actually the third biggest city in the whole of the UK.
Oh, wow. Hello, Alex. Thanks so much for joining us for this episode. How are you doing today?
I'm doing really well, thank you, Pavel. And it's an absolute pleasure to be with you to have a conversation today.
The pleasure is all mine. Thanks so much for finding the time. We're going to be talking about Lincoln today. But before we go to that, I'm really curious about Lincoln. I've never been there. I heard that it's a good place to see. I know that you're knowledgeable about the city, but before we go there, can you just tell us a bit more about yourself? Where you're coming from? How are things happening now? Just a few sentences about you.
Absolutely. So, yes, my name's Alex Trembath, and I live in Lincoln with my wife, Lisa, who's also my blogging and travel partner and all things in life, obviously. We both live in Lincoln and we both grew up nearby. But when we met a few years ago, we weren't actually living in the area. We were working together and we ended up living in London. But we took a year out together to go traveling, and we spent a year traveling around the world. We returned to London, started some new enterprises. We'd started a blog together, and Lisa was working full time as well. So living in London was a little bit of a challenge. While we loved it there, we couldn't really have the London lifestyle that we really wanted because it's just so expensive. So we decided that we would move back out to Lincoln, which is, well, obviously I'm going to tell you a lot more about it over the course of the conversation, but it's a beautiful historic city that's perhaps not as well known as some of the other historic cities around the UK. It's a little bit out of the way in the East Midlands, and it's about maybe 2 or 3 hours from London by train or by car. And yeah, we moved here 2 years ago, having grown up in the area in our early life. And so for the last couple of years, we've just been rediscovering Lincoln, and it's really been an absolute pleasure. Obviously, a lot of that time has been while we've had a pandemic on and we've been in lockdown. So we've done a lot of exploring of the outdoors and countryside around Lincoln and in the wider area, Lincolnshire. We're passionate about exploring both our local area and further afield. And yeah, so I'm very happy to talk to you today about Lincoln.
That's awesome. And I'm very happy to talk about somebody who's knowledgeable about that area. Because let me just quickly share my map over here. I know about I wouldn't say I know much about York, but York is one of the next places I would like to visit, just for the reason, as you mentioned, is as historic, but we don't know much about Lincoln. So I'm really curious to know more about this place. So first of all, how I like to start is things to see. I'm really curious about history as well. So when you tell us a place to see, if you can add some historic facts, that would be great, because I know you know some.
Absolutely. And history is something that you will find in abundance in Lincoln. And you or your listeners may be familiar with the travel writer called Bill Bryson. So he published a famous book in the 1990s where he traveled around the whole of the UK. And when he visited Lincoln, he wrote in his book about how he was amazed that it wasn't better known. That a place that has such amazing architecture and history in Lincoln should be perhaps on a par with somewhere like Bath or York or Edinburgh. Like that, there is so much history here. And up until medieval times, Lincoln was actually the third biggest city in the whole of the UK.
Oh, wow.
And so, and it's a Roman city as well. So there's still lots of Roman remains, Roman ruins. There's actually a Roman archway in Lincoln, which is the only Roman archway that still has traffic passing underneath it, for example. But really, the icon, the highlight of Lincoln, certainly for many tourists who visit anyway, is Lincoln Cathedral. So it's Lincoln is built on a really tall hill. It's in the county of Lincolnshire, which is actually very flat, but Lincoln is on a hill and the cathedral stands on the top of the hill. So you can see it for many, many miles around. And it was built in the 11th century, or around, that was when it that was when the cathedral was first kind of built on that site. And for about 250 years from then, it was actually the tallest building in the world.
Whoa, what? Really?
Yeah. Lincoln Cathedral was the tallest building in the world for over 2 centuries. It overtook the pyramids of Giza at the time. And the only reason it stopped being the tallest building in the world is because there was a fire and the main spire on the cathedral collapsed. Ooh. So if that had not happened, it would have continued to be the tallest building in the world right through to the 19th century, because they never rebuilt it to the same height that it was originally. But it's still, like, today, you go and see the cathedral today. It's an absolutely spectacular building. You can go inside, you can take a tour, and there's various features in the in the cathedral. For example, there are only 2 Wren libraries left in the UK. These are libraries built by the architect Christopher Wren. And one of those is in, I believe it's Oxford University, I think I'm right. And the other one is in Lincoln Cathedral. So it's really is a highlight. And I see you're bringing some pictures, so you can see just what a striking piece of architecture the cathedral is.
It is magnificent. I got curious about the library, so I just Googled the library. It seems like a really old place. So the cathedral that we saw, is it now rebuilt? Is it the way it was before the fire?
Well, like any building of its time, there have been various kind of restorations and reconstructions over the years. So it's not in exactly the same format that it was originally, but it's still like and it's built from stone from a nearby quarry as well. So it's constantly being restored and regenerated. But yeah, and one of the great views that you can see from the cathedral, I'll mention here as well, another really important highlight of Lincoln, which is Lincoln Castle. So Lincoln Castle stands quite near to the cathedral on the top of the hill. And the castle was built by William the Conqueror shortly after the Battle of Hastings. So I think it was around 1068, 2 years after the Battle of Hastings. William the Conqueror came to Lincoln. He asked for a castle to be built on the hill. And like the cathedral, it's been regenerated various times over the years. But for a castle of its time, it is really one of the very best preserved that you will find in the UK. And there is a wall that goes all the way around the castle site still. And you can take, you can buy a ticket to do what is called the medieval wall walk. So you can walk all around the perimeter of the top of the castle. I can't remember the exact distance, but I think it's over a kilometer all the way around the wall. And the view you get of Lincoln Cathedral from the top of the wall is just really incredible. So if anyone comes to Lincoln, and if you only have a couple of hours or you only have a day, like, I would really suggest going to the castle to walk around the wall, to see the cathedral, and also going to see the cathedral. But there's many more things you can do in Lincoln, but these are really 2 of the highlights, especially if you're interested in seeing the history.
Nice. I love that. So wait, William the Conqueror apparently was very busy and he really liked that style, because I know he built the Tower of London, which is basically the same thing. Well, not the same thing, but it has a wall around it. So is there anything else he built in the country? Would you happen to know? I just got curious.
Now, there are several castles that were commissioned by William the Conqueror and built around the same time. Actually, we've got an article about Lincoln Castle on our blog that explains some of the other castles that were built around the same time.
We're gonna link it up. That's for
sure. So absolutely, if you can pop that in the show notes or whatever. But there's various others. I think York may have been one of them. Pretty sure that's the case. But yeah, there were, as you say, there were several. Like William the Conqueror went on a bit of a spree building various of these kind of fortified structures around the UK. Lincoln Castle was one of the main pieces of work that was done around that time.
Okay, so the castle, the cathedral, definitely, I think it's no doubt that you can clear these 2 in a day easily. Anything that is, probably less known, but you would say this deserves your attention in Lincoln?
Yeah, I can really suggest some things. So first of all, Lincoln city centre itself is quite compact. And the area where the castle and cathedral are is kind of known as Uphill Lincoln, or the Cathedral Quarter. And if you arrive in Lincoln at the train station, to get to the Uphill Quarter, you have to walk up a really steep hill that's actually called Steep Hill. So Steep Hill in Lincoln is, when you climb up it, there are lots of like quirky independent shops, some cafes, some tea rooms, all these kinds of things. It's very popular, actually. But if you're visiting Lincoln for a day, then and you want to spend the time around the cathedral and the castle, then walking up Steep Hill and visiting some of the shops. And there's also a road called Bailgate that's at the top of the hill too, which is similar, has some really nice restaurants, some really interesting shops, and independent art galleries is another thing in Lincoln. So there's one called the Little Red Gallery that's on the Bailgate. But if you go around some of the back streets around the city centre, you'll find some others. So there's one called the Sam Scorer Gallery. On Steep Hill, there's Harding House Gallery. And then a little way out of the city, a little way out of the kind of the main stretch is one called, there's the Usher Gallery. And the collection. So Lincoln's got this really, really excellent art scene, and the galleries will have a mixture of kind of local and contemporary art. They'll often invite artists from all over the country to exhibit. So that's another thing that you can certainly do.
Okay. So are those galleries usually free?
Yes, although the galleries do tend to be free. Although sometimes you might have paid exhibitions.
Yeah, of course.
Certainly, the smaller galleries tend to be free as well.
That's lovely. Reminds me of London and the museums, because they're usually free, which is a great thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of the great things about the UK, that museums and galleries just so often tend to be free. So that's sorry. Before I move on. Yeah. One thing I should mention just about Lincoln Castle as well is another really significant thing about Lincoln is the Magna Carta. You may have heard of Magna Carta.
Yeah.
So it's obviously one of the most famous and important historic documents in the world. There are only 4 surviving original copies of the Magna Carta in the UK, and one of them is in Lincoln Castle. I think it's only one of the 2 that you can actually go and see. But when you visit Lincoln Castle, you can also go and see one of the original surviving copies of Magna Carta as part of the Lincoln Castle experience.
Wow. I didn't know there are 4 copies, to be fair. For those of you for people who don't know what the Magna Carta is, can you just give us a brief explanation?
Yeah, so it was around, recently there was the landmark that it passed its 800th year. But the Magna Carta was basically a document that's widely considered to have set the basis for the rule of law in England, and for established the basis for people's rights and this kind of thing. I believe it was King John in 1215 who signed the original Magna Carta. And when you visit Lincoln Castle, there's a video where it tells you, there's kind of historic reenactments where they have actors performing, but they tell the story of how it came about. And there were quite a few battles that took place in and around the city in the couple of years afterwards. There was another charter signed a couple of years later called the Charter of the Forest, and you can also see that in Lincoln Castle. So it's really widely considered to be probably the most important document in setting the context of English law.
Yeah, I think there was one copy in London in one of the museums. I'm not sure which one, but that's one in my mind. Probably in the
British Library, I think it is.
Is it?
Yeah, I think that's where one of the copies is. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I don't know. Maybe
I might be wrong, but yeah.
Maybe we can check that later on. Okay, well, that was a great piece over there. Is there anything else, like maybe one more place that we can have a look around Lincoln?
Yeah, so another thing that's really nice about Lincoln is that there's quite a lot of green outdoor spaces, and especially in the kind of the post-pandemic world, that people are looking for places where they can spend time outdoors as well a little bit before people are completely comfortable with going into crowded spaces. So Lincoln has quite a lot of parks and like hidden walks and things like this. So one example that something that we often really like to do ourselves is one of the oldest, actually the oldest operational canal in the UK runs from Lincoln to the River Trent nearby. It's called the Fostdike. So it's a really old canal. And in Lincoln, it begins at a place that's also the oldest inland harbour in the UK, which is called the Brayford Waterfront. So if you go to the Brayford Waterfront in Lincoln, you'll find there's like some bars and restaurants. There's a cinema. Some of them have seating outside that look over the water. It's also where the university is based. But you can walk from there and you can follow a path that goes out onto the Fostdike, and then you can follow the canal all the way out. So there's a village called Saxelby that's a few miles outside Lincoln. And if you want, you can walk on the Fostdike all the way to there. But what we like to do, especially at the weekend, is there is a pub called the Pie Wipe Inn, which is, I think it's about a mile from Lincoln to the Pie Wipe on the Fostdike. So it's just a really nice walk along this old canal. Then you arrive at the pub, and it's one of these great British countryside pubs that has outdoor seating on the grass, and you can arrive at the pub, have maybe a Sunday lunch if you do it on a Sunday, and then it's kind of a perfect distance to walk back. Or you can actually stay overnight. They have a hotel there as well. But yeah, that's something that's certainly, if you're there at a weekend and you're looking for a little bit of a walk and somewhere to eat, that's something we'd recommend.
Is that the pub?
That's right. Yeah. In fact, that picture looks like one from our website.
Huh.
So
Lincoln and Beyond.
Yeah, that's right. That's us. You see the article that you've got there. That's the Scenic Canal Pub Walk. That's the one that we. That article again, if you want to put that in your show notes, that we explain where you start the walk and everything you need to know about it, basically.
Lovely. We'll add that as well. Well, from this picture, because I don't know, much about what's happening on the other side of this building, but I would assume it's all greenery and woods, right?
Yeah, pretty much. You pass so in the section where you're still in the city, you'll pass by through some housing estates, but while you're still on the water, there'll be lots of like barges and kind of fishing on the canal, and then it passes through a large. It passes past a large grassy area called the West Common, which is one of the biggest green spaces in Lincoln. Also nice if you want to just have a picnic in the view of the cathedral there. Is another option. But from there, so once you've walked from 10 minutes from Lincoln, you're kind of in open countryside, and it's just it's really pretty. And
I just imagine myself riding my horse for a day and just seeing that. It's like, okay, let's go inside for a beer, maybe sleep over here, and then continue my journey. Looks nice.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's perfect for that. And you'll see wildlife around there. Sometimes you see deer around the Fostdike. Yeah, it's great.
Huh. All right. Well, that's a nice little gem over here. That was great. Anything else? I'm actually more curious about anything, because I see that history, and that actually brings a spark in my eyes. I don't know if you can tell us something more about the history of Lincoln, because you said it's in excess. Maybe something extra curious.
Yeah, sure. And here's another example which you can combine with somewhere to have a bite to eat or drink. So another kind of historical fact about Lincoln is that there is a bridge in the middle of Lincoln on the High Street. It's called High Bridge, and it is believed to be the oldest bridge in the UK that still has active buildings on it. And so this bridge dates back to medieval times.
Is that the canal you were talking about?
That's right. So that building you see, that kind of really medieval style, like white and black wooden beam building. So that building on top of the bridge is called High Bridge Cafe. And that's actually a cafe that's run by a really popular local business called Stokes Tea and Coffee. Stokes actually has a couple of outlets around Lincoln. It's got Highbridge Cafe. It's got another one called The Lawn, which is in the Uphill area. But Highbridge Cafe is kind of kind of an iconic experience if, when you visit Lincoln. So it's a tea room, but Stokes grinds its own coffee in the city centre, so you can have their own coffees. But they also kind of curate teas and coffees from different teas from around the world. So you can stop there and have maybe an afternoon tea. You can have they have a menu of snacks and meals that you can have for lunch. So and it's really, so you go inside that cafe and it's got like a winding staircase, and upstairs you've got little booths and little cubby holes and corners, and it's got this really quaint feeling to it. So it's a place where you can go inside and really have like an immersive experience of the city's history while having your lunch or what have you.
Nice. That building caught my eye from the very beginning, because if I'm not mistaken, that building is right next to the cathedral, isn't it?
No, it's actually it's a little bit away from the cathedral. It's on the high street, which so Lincoln High Street runs kind of north to south through the city, and Highbridge Cafe is on kind of the lower high street. So I mentioned before that when you arrive at the train station, you have to then walk up a hill. But from the train station, you walk all the way up the high street before you get to the hill. And so the Highbridge Cafe is located on the high street, but it's maybe 15 minutes walk away from the cathedral.
I see. That's why I got confused, because there's a similar building right next to the cathedral, but it has triple roof.
Oh, I can tell you about that building too, if you like.
Go on.
So that building is actually the Tourist Information Centre. It's actually Lincoln Visitor Information Centre.
No way.
Is in that building. So yeah, even having tourist information in Lincoln is a historic experience. So that building is actually called Lee Pemberton House. And it is one of the oldest buildings in Lincoln. It's certainly one of the oldest active buildings in Lincoln. And as you can see there, the ground floor there is the tourist information, but it's also self-catered accommodation. So you can actually book to stay overnight in the Pemberton House.
Really?
So in the upstairs part is an apartment, so you can book to stay there.
Is it expensive?
It's maybe slightly dearer than some other places. I mean, there's a wide range of places you can stay around Lincoln. One of the things I love about Lincoln is like the independent bed and breakfast and guest houses, but it's probably more on the expensive side, but you're still not going to break the bank. It's probably like the same price as staying in a hotel in London for the night or something.
Yeah. Is it inside? Is it like renovated, like normal, like today's style, or is it more kept as for the past?
Well, it's quite similar to other buildings of the period. There's been a lot of work done, as far as I understand anyway, to preserve a lot of the original features. So in order for the building to still be operational and active, they've had to do some renovation and modernization work. But you'll still find like timber framing, wooden beams, maybe fireplaces. Like a lot of the original features have been either kept intact in their original format or at least like restored as they were in their original form. So it's still, you still have this kind of medieval experience by staying there. I think it's 16th century, actually, that building dates back to.
Century. Crazy. Okay, I have one more question. Might be a difficult question. What is your favorite place to eat in?
Favorite place to eat? Now, this is kind of a tricky one. So I mentioned Stokes Highbridge Cafe, and that's kind of an example of Lincoln has a really vibrant scene of like tea rooms and coffee houses and places like this. So as well as the Stokes cafes, there are a couple of others that we really like too. So there's one called Bell's Tea Room, which is at the top of Steep Hill near the Castle and Cathedral, and there's another one near there called Bunty's. But there's many more around the city. Another article on our blog runs through the various tea rooms in Lincoln that I can share with you, and some of these are also in the historic buildings.
Yeah, I found your website again.
Yeah, excellent. Well, it's glad to hear. Well, we only launched it in October, so it's glad to hear that people are finding it. But the other thing about Lincoln as well is that we have, while Lincolnshire as a county produces 20% of the food in the UK, Like 20% of the domestic food in the UK is produced in Lincolnshire. So there's a lot of like locally sourced restaurants that use locally sourced food from farms around Lincolnshire. And we have some famous foods like Lincolnshire sausages and various other Lincolnshire cheeses are quite famous as well. So you can have a lot of local food, but also because a university opened here in the 90s, we've had this, like, it's gradually become a much more diverse city culturally. And there are lots of like different international cuisines that you'll now find around the city. Like there's a tapas restaurant called Ole Ole, which is really excellent. It's that's in Uphill Lincoln near the Stokes Cafe, the Lawn. And there's a Brazilian Greek restaurant on the high street that we quite like.
Hold on, did you say so Brazilian Greek restaurant?
Yeah, they recently recently relaunched it. You know, I can't remember the actual the name of the place, but there really is a diverse mixture. In terms of so I mentioned like Lincolnshire sausages and Lincolnshire cheeses. A couple of recommendations here. There's a place called Brown's Pie Shop, which is on the steep hill, where you'll get like different pies. I think one of them is a Lincolnshire sausage one. And there's also an amazing cheese shop called the Cheese Society. And it also has a cafe where you can go in and have lunch. And they stock various Lincolnshire cheeses like Lincolnshire Poacher and Coat Hill Blue, but they also have international cheeses as well that they curate from different suppliers. So yeah, Brown's Pie Shop, the Cheese Society, they're great places to go and eat as well. Yeah, that's just a few. I realize I'm throwing out a lot of information, but there's a few examples off the top of my head.
Yeah, so curious. I asked you for your favorite place and you started naming them. Difficult to get one. All right.
It's really hard to name. It's really hard to name one because there's just so many places. I guess if we're going to really treat ourselves, there are a couple of really higher end restaurants in Lincoln. So there's one called, let me think which one I'll pick out. So there's one called the Bronze Pig, which is kind of like a fine dining restaurant. You can also stay there overnight as well. It's like a restaurant with rooms. So if you're looking for fine dining, like the Bronze Pig is a good place to choose.
Yeah, you can see that they're spending more time to prepare their portions. Okay, that was great. Is there anything that you believe that we missed, but it's worth mentioning about Lincoln?
No,
I'm sure there are a lot of things. Okay, maybe I take my question back. You're like, oh well, where shall I begin? Okay, something, maybe one or two things. One thing, if you think that is so important, so needy, like for example, you go in Lincoln, don't shake your head or something like that. If there's something like that you think that we need to know before we go there, but we missed, now's the time to mention it.
Right. Yeah. I guess one final thing I mentioned is more on the food and drink thing is like, if you like a beer, go and try the Real Ale pubs in Lincoln. There's some amazing Real Ale pubs. Again, we've got an article on our blog picking out the best Real Ale pubs in Lincoln. But there is an excellent scene. There's like the Tiny Tavern, there's the Strugglers Inn, there's the Victoria, but there's if you have some extra time and you fancy going on a little bit of a pub crawl, they're really friendly places and you'll find some like really amazing local ales. Nice.
Basically, we gave you, everyone who's listening and watching, we gave you a lot of information. If you want to learn more, there are links in the description that will lead you to more information. So basically, you're all set with Lincoln. And if you still have more questions, feel free to drop Alex a message. And I'm sure he'll be happy to help you out and invite you for more information.
Absolutely. And if you ever do come to Lincoln, give us a shout and we'd be happy to go for a drink, show you around.
For a real ale as well, right?
Oh, yeah, of course.
I'm already looking forward to that. By the way, in terms of York, how far is York, by the way, from Lincoln?
York is now probably an hour and a half or 2 hours drive, maybe maybe like an hour and a half drive.
Okay, maybe I'll think a way to combine those two. Okay, I'll think about it. I'll let you know. I'll definitely let you know if I come to Lincoln. And then also you mentioned that you used to live in Patagonia, so we're gonna do an episode about that.
That's right. Well, we spent a lot of time traveling. We didn't live in Patagonia, but we spent a lot of time traveling there when we were on our year away traveling. It's the place where we probably spent the most time. We were there for quite a few weeks. It's a huge place, but it's. People often ask me where my favorite place in the world is, and in terms of just visual beauty, Patagonia is always my answer to that.
Excellent. So we're gonna have an extra episode of your favorite place in the whole world. More than excited for that. Well, Alex, thanks so much for joining us once again. I wish you a fantastic evening.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.